All right. We will call to order this meeting of the Lenox School Committee for September 23rd, 2024. Please note the meeting is being broadcast live on CTSB TV and will be rebroadcast there as well. Thank you to them for helping us come set up. Thank you to Dr. Ames and the high school for letting us be here in the library. It's very cozy here, I have to say. And we would start with hearing of visitors, if there are any. I don't see any. Correspondence, I don't have any for the committee's discussion. And so we may get straight to the board report with nothing but the minutes of September 9th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the minutes of September 9th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? And we're on to the superintendent's report.
All right, I'd like to begin by inviting Marcus Hass up to the microphone and introducing him to the committee as the assistant principal here at LMHS.
Good evening, folks. It's very nice to be in front of you today. My name is Marcus Hass. I'm the new assistant principal here at Lenox Memorial Middle and High School. I appreciate you, sir. I'll start with, it's been such a welcoming community, and, everybody that I've worked with, especially Dr. Ames, I've just been, so helpful and thoughtful, and I've just been, it's been a very smooth integration into your community, and, I'm having a great time making it my community now, so thank you so much. All right, thank you.
So, recognitions and highlights. I want to recognize all of the new staff who have been learning the curriculum and the Lenox way. It is great to see them making this community theirs as well. So kudos to them. And in particular, I want to say to Jenna White and Mary Sorrentino as the leaders of the mentoring leadership team and all of the work that they've been doing. It is, there really is a great vision for having one of the best mentoring programs in the county, if not the state, and we will get there. And slowly and surely, we're making great strides, and I'm really pleased with the work they're doing. They deserve the shout out. As far as staffing updates, Jaslyn Hamburg is the admin assistant in guidance now, and August Danowski is the admin assistant for the assistant principal, and we welcome them aboard as well. And that's what I have for staffing updates.
All right.
Okay.
We have two main things for discussion this evening. One is an update from the school building committee, and then we'll also go over the operations section from the strategic plan. And so for the school building committee, I guess I'll hand over to you, David, and sure. I know we have Bob here as well.
Yeah. So the school building committee had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we had some just a preliminary report on the feasibility study, which is not yet due for about another week or so. And we thought we would take this opportunity to have Bob here as chairman of the building committee, just present what was discussed there, and answer any questions anyone may have at this point. Just so everyone knows, the next meeting of the building committee is on October 2nd. And, we will hopefully have some more additional information after that.
All right.
All set for me? Okay, first off, thank you for inviting me here tonight. When we started the feasibility study, we asked Kalo and Bianic to look at construction of a separate building with new science labs, classrooms, as well as additional teaching spaces, totaling, no more than 15,000 square feet. Connection to the upstairs west side of the existing high school wing, renovation of the existing upstairs west side classrooms, air conditioning for the upstairs of both the high school and the middle school. Those are typically in the fall and spring can be beastly, particularly in the afternoon on the middle school wing and the high school wing. Renovate the gymnasium locker rooms, and then review other building systems for areas that might need work. And in doing that, they looked at the entryway, making a secure entryway, and we'll show some slides here in a minute. Secure entryway, and then also there's a safety issue in the auditorium with the stage curtain that actually should probably be dealt with regardless of the building project. And then we asked them to kind of reconfigure the bus parent drop-off areas. So to that end, and this is, as I said, as David said, the final report should be due, I think, within a week or so. I know that our contact person, Bert Gardner, is going to be out of the office for a week or two right now, but he said that it will get finished. In fact, he might be trying to finish it before he leaves or whatever he's doing. I don't know what his plans are. But anyway, so here are a few slides showing, and remember, this is a feasibility study, so this is not the final drawings, but this is what they've come up with. So on the left, you'll see a new building to the left connected to the upstairs of the high school. And you'll also see that on the existing high school, the plan would be to renovate those 6 classrooms, or create 6 classroom spaces, or whatever we would like the classroom spaces to look like in the existing building. On the left, the building has 8 classrooms, 4 or 5 for science or technology. And the reasoning there was the existing science classrooms couldn't really be expanded without pushing out the building in ways that, wouldn't be really feasible. And also concerns about what would happen if we had to open up walls and create more potential hazards with the vermiculite issues that we faced 3 years ago. So building an existing, a separate building and connecting it to where the current greenhouse is, expanding the opening there, that can be changed, expanding the opening there to be, and you'll see in some of the conceptual drawings, a nice space for traffic to go back and forth. They did, because of the contours of the hillside, they did put the building about 8 feet higher than the existing building, so there would be stairs as well as an elevator on the interior. Now, if you go over to the right-hand drawing, you'll see the yellow lines where the bus drop. There were 2 possibilities. One is, and they don't show this on this drawing, and I don't have a sketch that shows this, but one of them would be having the buses go around the building, and there would be a turnaround right at where it says bus turnaround. There'd be a circle there for the buses to turn around and then come back out and then exit. A second alternative was to have them go down by the soccer field and exit out onto East Street, just south of the retention pond. But that was really nixed. The police felt the sight lines weren't good, and it would have resulted in some changes to some slight changes to the size of the soccer field. It wouldn't have meant the soccer field was not appropriate size, but it's something that we just decided, if we can do the circle around where it says bus turnaround and have the buses come out and have the parent drop-offs be where the blue is, we can, largely solve the issues of kids always crossing in front of buses when they're entering the building. There would be a drop-off right at the auditorium, there'd be a drop-off up where it normally is, for students who are coming by car, they could go in the regular entrance. Students coming by bus would be dropped off so they could enter the building at the auditorium.
Mr. Vaughn, I think there's a pointer feature on that. You might be able to.
You know, there might be. So this is a conceptual drawing of the building. This would be looking at it from, if you were behind the existing high school wing right now, looking up the hillside. This would be a potential drawing of what it might look like. This is looking at it from another view. This is looking at it from like the roof of the existing building. This is typical classroom. Typical science lab. Then the corridors have, this would be in the connection from, this would be the existing high school room that would be renovated to make the space to go out into the new building. And we're looking at the stairs that would go up into the new building, and next to it, the elevator that would go up. And they've created some breakout spaces, for both here and in the, I don't know if we'll see it. Yeah, so here in the new building, there'd be some areas in the hallway, the way this design shows it anyway, that would allow for some student work with visibility from the classroom, so that teachers could see the students who are outside doing breakout work. But and this kind of shows that. Did anybody want to see any of those pictures for any greater length of time?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The whole question, so we have to-
No, you can ask a question.
So, the drop-off, I heard you when you said, you had originally talked about maybe the, school buses going straight out alongside of the soccer field now onto East Street, and that would be, this turnaround in the back of the building has no impact on the existing soccer fields right now?
No, it would be, it would be probably somewhere near where the shed is, the food shed. I don't know exactly, but it would be coming around to where, like, you see where it says bus turnaround? The
Yeah.
soccer field is, the main soccer field is really
Yeah,
east of it.
Right, but
East of it.
the second, the JV.
I don't think it would
whatever you
affect
call it.
the soccer field itself. It would, potentially, the shed might have to be moved, possibly.
Okay, so there's no impact on the soccer fields where
I
we would
don't
be
believe
redoing the
so.
soccer
I don't
fields or-
believe so.
That was not part of
Just
the
trying to
discussion.
Picture the bus turning around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nothing, it's all
Yeah.
preliminary concepts at this point.
Right.
Anyway, there's still a lot of discussion to do around most of these points.
Right, I just would hate to see an
Oh, absolutely.
additional
Yeah, I don't think,
investment into redoing soccer fields as well, that's all.
yeah, I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think it's going to.
Perfect.
If anybody wants me to stop on any of these pictures, just let me know. I mean, one of the things in designing a building is they've put all the light, up top. If it becomes too expensive, they can just put a flat roof and not have all those windows up there. I mean, there are obviously, this is a conceptual drawing that they sent out to the estimators in August to get, some ideas. And, we will have, and probably will have to have, an opportunity to say, yeah, we'd like to do that, but we maybe can't afford it in some areas. And that was one of the things with that possible exit by the soccer field. It wasn't going to work for a variety of reasons. One, the soccer field. Two, the police didn't feel the sight lines were good with buses, entering West Street, where the rise was. But I believe that's going to be in the estimate, so it's something that we can say, okay, we'll save $200,000 or $300,000 or whatever it would have cost to do that.
I think it's also worth noting that the building is raised up also because it'll allow light to come in from the west side. Otherwise, you're kind of building right into the hill, and then you're building kind of a cave.
Well, they also wanted to raise it 8 feet because it wouldn't be too easy for people to climb onto the roof from the upper part.
Can't just put giant spikes on the roof?
Well, there'd be that too, but
Question, as far as whether it's included in your request about solar. And we, for a long time, talked about solar, and, you know, the energy efficiencies, et cetera, and some of the issues have been whether the roof can hold it or whether it's designed for it. Is there ability to
I think
plan on solar?
in our discussions, the discussions have been, we want the roof to be able to take solar if, you know. And I think Jim Moore could explain this better, but in the stretch building code, new buildings are required, any new construction like this is required to meet the new stretch building code, which is a very energy efficient code. I'm not sure that we are actually including in what we're doing here the solar right off the bat. We had talked about possibly them having a separate solar freestanding array somewhere, but the roof, I believe, will be structurally sound enough to do that. So here's the potentially what the building could look like. They had sent 4 or 5 options to the faculty to look at, and this was the one the faculty chose last spring because they needed to have something to actually do the design work on and to get for estimates. So this is the one that came out, and then they've worked to kind of create, and along the way, there have been questions that Jeremiah has answered about, bathroom spaces, about this, we addressed the size of the science rooms because the state had, back in 2017, I think, 16 or 17, it issued some guidelines for what science classrooms should look like, and we wanted to make sure that these were fitting within that size range that the state had put out as kind of their preferred model. And we don't have to do that because we're not asking for the state money on this, but there were questions along the way that we said, and even those small group areas could, if we wanted more classroom space, those small group areas could be eliminated. There's things like that this was just a nice conceptual thing that they drew. So this is the, and you can see down on the side the features that are listed here.
Maybe this is just obvious, but one of the things that we've heard from faculty quite a bit over the years is they're not having a quote-unquote home space, faculty needing to have roaming with their materials. So that's part of the plan of all of this. So ultimately, is this the idea that we would accommodate all of those roving faculty members?
Well, ideally, I mean, whether it accommodates every faculty member, I'm not sure. What we've talked about in recent years, and I don't know if these numbers are the same numbers today as they were 3 or 4 years ago, that we had 51 teachers and 40 teaching spaces. This would obviously create 8 new teaching spaces. I don't know what the reconfiguration of the classrooms on the second floor, would be, but there would definitely be many, many fewer people having to double up and not have a teaching space. Whether it's everybody, I don't think we could have designed it to cover 11 new teaching spaces, but maybe in this configuration it does, in some way. Because I think we're counting teaching spaces also as the auditorium. There's a bunch of places that we're counting as teaching spaces that this might help alleviate some of that kind of thing.
Sorry, back on the last one. Are the general classrooms here are not the current science labs?
Up top where it says general classroom, those on the left, those would be science classrooms. And where it says breakout collaboration, that would be right now, I believe everything from about where the IT storage is left, our science classrooms, and I could be wrong on that. That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so part of the renovation converts them into general classrooms?
Right, right. And one of the alternates is that we don't, I mean, cost-wise, that we don't do the renovations that we just live with the configuration, as it is. I mean, obviously, we're hopeful that we can do all of this because we feel it's all needed, but the town selectmen, ultimately the voters, will need to tell us, what we can afford to do. So then this is a potential sketch of locker room renovations. I can't articulate myself what the existing one looks like and why this is so much better, but the locker rooms are in desperate shape of being renovated. And then, I think this might be the final slide. Whoops. This would be creating a new ramp and visitor entrance with a secure vestibule. So, visitors coming in during the school day, obviously kids arriving in the morning with the faculty out there could go through the existing entrance. But somebody coming in the day would go into a secure vestibule before they would be buzzed somewhere else into the building. There'd be a drop-off spot if they were dropping off a lunch for a kid or doing books for a student or whatever. So there'd be no need to go any further than that. But this is something that has been a concern because now you enter and you can go, you don't have to go to the office. You could just, you're supposed to go to the office, but you can go anywhere in the building. So this was a suggestion to be added in.
And that's not new space, that's all.
That's using
wall being
existing
built
space,
right
yeah,
in there.
yeah. There'd be probably some site work out there where the ramp visitor entrance is, and I think they told us that this does not include a cover over it the way the existing one does, but that could be added, or at least up near the door, could be. But yeah, this would be just building whatever you have to build to make it a secure space. I'm sorry?
There's still entrance to the building through that vestibule.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't know exactly where the door is that they could then open for someone to go in, but I guess it's right there. Yeah, right south of the pass-through box, there's a double door that they could then get into the office area, and then into the rest of the building.
The existing entrance would be used for the students at drop-off
Yeah,
time.
students coming in the morning, or meetings coming like tonight where it's open, but that's with faculty out there, watching the entrance as they come in, so.
And then it would be secured, it would not open
It'd be
during.
locked at a certain point.
Yeah.
Right.
So then even students, say, returning during the day would go through the secure vestibule.
So that's really all I have. Keeping in mind that this is a feasibility study, we're going to get the results within a week or so, we think. We'll have numbers with it. And, what we're finding is, the building itself, the new building might come in at $8 or $9 million to build, but there's site work, there's just a whole lot of other things that get added to it, to renovate the upstairs high school, to renovate the locker rooms. We had asked them to come in, with the best estimates they could, but there's also going to be escalators because it's not going to be built tomorrow. The best case scenario would be that it would be built potentially starting in, I got to think about the calendar here, the winter of '26 would be the starting point. So because we're not building right now, they'll be building an escalator, amount of money in for that. So there's things like that that, we're gonna have to see what those numbers look like in a week, and that'll be all public. I mean, we'll get that, and I don't know exactly, I guess it will go to Dr. Collins. I'm not sure who else it will go to, but we'll have that very shortly, and then the next phase will be, and what we're hoping to ask for at town meeting in November, whenever that gets scheduled, is the money for the architectural work to be done. And they've estimated that that's typically 12 to 13% of, I don't know of what number, but 12 to 13% of maybe the overall estimated cost of construction. I don't know. They're going to try to keep it to 10%. So that's what we would be asking for most immediately, with the idea that a year from now, or a year, whenever the architectural work is done, whether it's a November town meeting a year from now, or a special town meeting, or just the May town meeting a year and a half from now, we would then be asking for the money to build. And so during this process, during this time frame, we need to ascertain from the town fathers and town's voters, what can we do? We'd like to do it all. Is that really feasible? Will be the question. And Chris Ketchen, felt that within a certain number we would be fine. When we see these numbers, we'll have to ask Chris again. Do you think we'd still be fine? Because he was the guy who really knew the numbers. And based on what the town current debt is and what, and he said, yeah, every year that goes by, the ability to build something, spend a little bit more is there, but I don't know what order of magnitude we're talking about. So, but we'll know in a week.
Can I just put out one more thing that really is for sort of everyone, but since you're working together on this issue of building, and then we also have capital improvements, which I think sometimes covers building, sometimes goes to is looking at the gymnasium, kind of thinking about the bigger nature of this project and whether the gymnasium could be potentially shifted, the locker rooms, which have been on the list for a long time, could potentially be shifted to a different capital improvement and maybe even done beforehand, only because it seems to me that that's the one place that feels anyway, knowing nothing about the building project, that's sort of could be separate and stand alone and maybe done while we're waiting to start big construction. Just thinking about that is a question I have, that maybe that could get done while we're doing all the others sort of in a different location, but
Well,
maybe not.
Yeah, and in point of fact, the way this is going to come to us, I believe, from the estimators, is an estimate for building the building and the connection, an alternate to do the high school and all the air conditioning for the two, an alternate to do the locker rooms. So, so we'll have different phases. I think the tricky thing is, do we ask for whatever number of million we need to build the two-story building? Do we have to come back and ask for another few million for this? And do we come back, or do we ask for all at once? Those will be issues that we have to wrestle with over the next year. But most immediately, we want to get the money for the architectural drawings and articulate to the architects, this is what we'd like you to work on, and come back with, and there'll be additional design stuff that the high school faculty will work on, but I think that Kalo and Bienick have done, they've been great in terms of the work that they've done for us to this point. And in a week or so, we'll have their final report, so.
And in terms of timeline, well, I guess a couple timeline questions. One, would the thinking be essentially, however much we decide to do, kind of all gets done at once, or is there a sequence where the new building gets built, once it's open, then we start on the old classrooms?
Well, the idea was that we would build the new building and the connection. Because we need to have students have a place to live, and go to classes. So we build that, and it's kind of like when Morris was built, the two-story wing was being built while kids were the first graders were watching it being built. And then everyone moved into that the next year while they renovated the rest of the building. So in a similar way, we build these 8 classrooms, and whatever was gonna be done in that upstairs hallway would be a second phase while people were living, and we'd have it blocked off in such a way that if we were just working at one end of the hallway to get those classrooms renovated, people would still have access to all the rest of the other side of the hallway and whatever. So it would be done in phases. And I don't know how long it would take, for example, to do the locker rooms, because obviously those, if those could be done in the summer, let's say, that would be fantastic. I have no idea whether that's practical or not, but that would be great. But yeah, they're gonna give us a phasing plan. So,
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that would be cool.
Right?
I mean, I guess the other question for us, just because this is our opportunity to sort of have input into the building committee, is this everything we would want to see? Or is there anything else, or also priorities within it? Are there particular things at the point where they're reaching trade-offs, there are things that we would say are most important to us? Sooner rather than later, bigger rather than smaller, and so forth.
I mean, I would say that, there's gonna be lots of time for all of those conversations to happen. As Mr. Bond was saying, design work is really going to determine a lot of our wants, a lot of our needs, and then the numbers as they come back in are gonna dictate, what we're able to do and how much we're able to do at that time.
And I think we want to take into consideration with input from our educators are that we build the space that we're going to want for the future, and not necessarily the spaces, not necessarily mimic, spaces that we have now that are not going to meet our needs as we move forward.
And is that I know Bob mentioned sort of getting feedback from the staff on design and so forth. Does that also cover everyone feeling like their needs are being met? Are there other kind of items outstanding? Or does this sort of, was this the footprint that people felt really addressed what we were going to need in the future?
Well, that's a question that.
I mean, it's a trade-off. I mean, it's the immediate goal we're trying to get to is science rooms. That's really the driver behind the whole thing. It does not address a lot of the capital needs for the rest of the building. We still have our MSBC application in for that, but this was a pathway to get us more rapidly into new classrooms and new science rooms and give us some breathing room in the next 10 years versus being in the waiting line for MSBC for an indeterminate amount of time and not make any progress. It's a compromise step, I would say. And it will depend on the town's ability to fund it, how much of our wants we can satisfy.
I mean, clearly a lot of work went into this. I appreciate the fact that there was the faculty input as well, the admin input. I personally would have to defer to them. This is going to be their space. It's going to be what they need. Those are questions we could ask down the road when we actually settle on something. But yeah, I mean, I'd be ignorant to all of that. I think this is the staff and the admin's baby.
There was an opportunity with the architects for the leadership team from LMHS to speak to what the needs were for sort of their constituencies, right, in each one of those
Was
departments.
any of the student leadership?
They did speak to students, I don't know, maybe Dr.
Early in the process,
Yeah.
we spoke to a small group of students. The design firm has been really interested in having
Nowhere to go.
having some students be part of their design process. In fact, Jim Moore, he does what he does now because my understanding is that he was an intern for them while the design firm was doing the renovation work on this building.
Yeah, yeah. Jim,
It's sort of kind of come full circle in an interesting way for him.
yeah.
But we're hopeful for that, and they were open to involving students in any way.
Yeah, I think that's important as well as staff and admin. Okay. Same thing, it's got wheels.
Anything else on building?
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, next item is the beginning of our year-long odyssey through the strategic plan. We are brave travelers set out into the first of the sections, which is operations. So we're starting nice and small. But I think the operations section, which you all have a printout copy of as well, it actually has a couple of different things within it. One is leadership, which is focused really on sort of leadership within the buildings. One is facilities, which we can also discuss and connects to the building side of things. But I think, the striking thing about the leadership piece of it is it speaks to where we were 5 years ago with really at the start of the significant and frequent turnover in administration. And then the other thing that was emphasized a lot was the desire for more staff engagement in sort of instructional leadership teams and so forth. And so, we will also speak as part of the Unit A negotiations to get updated feedback from teachers on how they feel like this is going. But I think it would also be a good thing, both be able to get your view and also from the principals just on what has changed, what we might feel like is still something that does need to be in focus, or what has been accomplished as the strategic plan might have wanted.
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Cameraman, would you do me a favor? Would you just pan on the admin team sitting here for a moment? So there was an old commercial about, not your father's Oldsmobile. Yeah, right, this isn't your father's admin team. So 11 years ago, there was a survey done, and then 5 years ago, there was another survey done, and they were pretty consistent in negative judgment, feeling that things were top-down, that what the staff had to say was disregarded. They didn't have a strong voice. They, even if they were listened to, they weren't heard. You can come back if you want. Thanks.
I was like,
I think we should just leave it on that for the rest of the
everyone's
meeting.
like, what's happening?
Thank you.
How long
Thank
is
you.
it gonna
I appreciate that.
Sorry. I was like, Carol.
So a lack of collaboration, a lack of respect, and I think an awful lot of that, if not some of these things completely addressed, but others are well on the way to being addressed. And it isn't, if the snapshot of the leadership was taken again, I believe that it would be quite different. One of the recommendations was to hire a superintendent who had a strong commitment to the community, regularly attends student at school events beyond school hours, is a strong advocate for the independent school system itself, and they suggested a residency requirement. So I think I'm hopeful that's self-evident that those things have happened, and that each school has an instructional leadership team. And we've added capacity. So with Holly Sewells as the assistant, Brenda Kelly phasing into the curriculum, instruction and assessment piece, and Tom Hines as our facilities coordinator, we've built some significant capacity to be able to meet the needs of the school. And as you've seen and you will see, we're planners. So we continue to plan and bring plans forward, and we're looking we're living with one foot in today, but we're also we've got one foot in what does 5 years from now look like. You know, part of even this building conversation started with Dr. Ames having a vision of, hey, you know, is this even possible? And you know, we've picked this up and run with it. So, again, I think that 11 years ago and 5 years ago, maybe this is what it was, but moving forward, I feel like we're in a really good place, and we'll be bringing, throughout the year and beyond, more plans forward to solidify where we're going, and I think that once people recognize, and by people, I mean the broader school community as well as the staff, where, you know, where we're heading and how they're a part of it, I think you'll see that the next iteration of this will look very, very different.
All right. And we have, I guess in here, the Lenox School Committee was all supposed to have a liaison to the instructional leadership team. I don't believe we do, but we will take it up at our HR subcommittee meeting tomorrow. And certainly at least to get feedback on where things stand. Anything else in the leadership space? This feels like one that obviously has been a major focus over the last few years, and we are now in a much better place than we were.
I think, and I think the other piece is the school committee as the governance. I hope has a better sense of the day-to-day operation and what's happening, and it should be being kept abreast of where we are, the issues that we're facing, and where we're going, and how we look to handle them. And I think that is important as, again, as the elected body, the legislature of the school, if you will.
And it seems to me that if I may, or is that what you're asking? Yeah, just really just reiterating what you're saying, but the concept of how we're gaining information from faculty, staff, community, leadership. There's a couple of ways you're doing it now, like you just reiterated, but also added the idea of doing exit interviews and community-based interviewing and getting feedback, and just continuing that as always being one of them. Like, that's one of those things that is always ongoing, right? As opposed to just, we did a survey and then we're done, which I think in the past it was some of that. We got the information and we didn't really have a process for figuring out, did we actually move the needle on that? So I think what we're doing now is getting the information and moving the needle, and then just making sure that we keep that system going forward, as opposed to just reinventing each time.
And last year, when I came in, we needed to survey, so we very quickly put together a homegrown survey, but we realized that we need something, you know, more robust. So we're going to be investing in another survey tool and putting out a survey to even capture more information to be able to share.
All right. And then on the facilities front, I think there were many well-known and identified issues with facilities. Some of those have been tackled. The building project addresses a bunch more. But I know we've even reorganized to some extent how we address all of that.
Right. And I invited our facilities coordinator, Tom Hines, here if there ends up being specific questions about this. He's new to the role, but already making a great impact. I can see the value of this, and also how it frees up, which was the plan, some of the capacity in our human resources. So the facilities coordinator certainly has a giant step forward. The freestanding classrooms, the addition, as you spoke to last year, very early on, and with our building committee, we had a security audit of both facilities. And so as we move forward, you see that that secure vestibule being one of those things. And a lot of the things that are in there are being built into the new facility, and they'll need to be, some of them will need to be retrofitted to the existing facility. We're taking advantage of National Grid lighting rebate program where they do 5 years of zero financing, and the savings to replace all the lights in both the buildings is greater than the cost. So right from the beginning, we're actually going to be cash flow positive on that project and have better, longer-lasting lights. Some of the needs that Tom and I have discussed are the roofs in both buildings and whether they're done in sections or in whole. They're of great concern. And right now, we patch leaks as they come up. But they're both toward the end of their lifespan. The LMHS parking lot was, several years back, was on target to be redone, and somewhere along the line, that didn't happen, but it is only deteriorated a little bit since then, so that's something on our list.
Would that be in the everything discussed here with the parking lot, or would that be separate?
So there was,
So one of the tasks the building committee needs to go back and do is take this list of things that are asks, that we had them in the NEAS study, we had them in the MSBC application, put them down one side and then put down the other side what the new building would get us. It's not going to be everything.
right.
But so redoing the parking lot is not in the plans as
I-
discussed, it's just configuration.
Conceptually, it's in the plan.
Yeah.
Price-wise, it hasn't really been worked out yet.
It was in our early conversations, but it is costly. We have some, speaking of costly, we've got some costly servers that keep our IT up and running, and they require cooling for the rooms that they're in. And right now, it's kind of a makeshift system to do that, but we need to find a permanent solution for that as well, because the investment in the service, and we're lost without them. And then finally, the sidewalks, just over time. Not at Morris, their sidewalk's still pretty good, but out here, and whether that's just replacing some sections or doing a larger swath of it, they're starting to show their wear, and we just want to avoid sort of trip hazards and that sort of thing as we move forward. But those are sort of the biggies, and while, the roofs in the parking lot are certainly big, the list isn't so expansive that it isn't achievable with a plan.
I want to make I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking about the strategic plan, and I'm wondering if, really, when I read this, and I listen to what you're saying, I'm wondering if if it would not be valuable for, a strategic plan notes here that there are many things we need to do. Perhaps the strategic plan on facilities going forward could actually list those things so that we would have a way of measuring them, or at the end of a 5-year period, say, hey, this is what we accomplished, this is what was important then, this is what we've done, this is what we still have to do.
Right, and we would, and once we understand exactly what the building project would or wouldn't get us, we can put forth a prioritized plan. And one of the beauties of having a facilities coordinator is that instead of having a set of priorities for one building and a set of priorities for the other building, and the first 3 at one building may be more of a priority than the other one, but now we actually have someone who can prioritize that, who lives in that world, works with contractors and can figure out what makes the most sense. So we can and will develop a plan that will prioritize, and we certainly can fit it right into the strategic plan. Yeah.
And I think, to your point, David, I really like Bob's suggestion of literally lining up here's all the old NEASC stuff, here's this one project that will do some of it, here therefore is everything else. And that is literally a strategic plan in a sense for what we'll have to know we want to do. I guess another question is, a NEASC, when was the last time we did, 2019 would be the last NEASC. So the question would be, what if anything else has popped up more recently? Mr. Hines, I don't know if you have anything you want to, you would throw out and say, hey, here's other things to be aware of. It would-
Not really at this time, pretty much got covered.
So next week?
And there are some smaller, ongoing things that Mr. Hines is handling on a regular basis. We have some older windows that were incredibly difficult to get up, and then the fear was that this heavy window could possibly slam down on a child. And so he's been having these within the budget, slowly but surely, a batch of them replaced, the worst ones first, taken care of, so that won't be an issue. Yeah. But there are a number of things that are within the budget that probably don't warrant the grandeur of a strategic plan, but are regular maintenance things that he is taking care of on a pretty regular basis. Both of the schools just got, last year at Morrison, this year, the leaf vacuums and the hours that having the leaf vacuum at the fall for the fields and the parking lots and all of that, the amount of time that it saves is worth the cost of these machines. They make it very manageable to collect all of these leaves, if you look at either campus, surrounded by trees and stuff, and to keep them neat and safe.
And then I guess the one other question I would have is just are there other, more from an academic perspective, things we might want facilities-wise? I remember, I don't know how many years ago this was, I just asked Brenda, if we had, extra money, what would we spend it on? And there was something about blackboards or whiteboards that sounded really nice. And so whether it's, what an elementary school classroom needs, or for innovation pathways, if it's redoing what is now our wood shop into something much more advanced. I don't know where except here we would consider any of that.
So we're going to have a presentation on tech, and it should be broad enough to talk about classroom instructional aids, if you will. Yeah.
But are there any entirely new, I guess, thinking about, for instance, for the pathways we now have, would we need dedicated spaces or certain types of spaces for those, or new equipment? I mean, the absurd answer that I'm sure is no is like, do we need our own MRI machine, right? Like that. We don't need our own MRI machine, but is there just stuff coming down the pike that is things you would want in a school in the 2020s that we didn't put in the 1990s in a sense?
So both Dr. Ames and I got tours by the president of the Berkshire Community, independent tours by President Kennedy of their campuses. And one of the truly awesome things is they have these tables now where the science students can see all of the systems of a body, and they sit around the table as if it is a real body, and they can peel away what they need to peel away to see the circulatory system, or to see, right, whatever it is, the skeletal system, the nervous system. It is really cool, and they have so much function. And you think of, versus looking at that in a textbook or on a screen, and to be able to sit around and do that. And so, anyway, in the back of my mind, I've been thinking about having conversations with our business partners to help us get from here to there, because we'd really be sending students out with such a deeper and better understanding of that than what they have now. But I'm sure that any of the staff, will come with a laundry list if you'd like. But that's something when I had my tour, I was like, this is absolutely fascinating. I think they call them dissection tables, maybe? Yeah, really, very cool.
I would love to hear from the woodworking teacher,
Hmm.
having been, as you know, the woodworking class and art students and everything made that beautiful sign for Bob Sullivan Memorial Field, and when we delivered it, and I walked in there, I kind of looked around. I'd love to hear, what their wish list would be and to update it, to kind of bring it, and as well as the art students, art teachers. I would love to see a laundry list or a wish list, or
We
the
certainly
the wood shop could, use a little overhaul.
do that. I know that the town is looking to see if they will build a replacement lectern for the town, which I've been calling a podium, and then stand
Yeah,
corrected, it's actually a
yeah.
lectern. So
What is the difference between the podium and the
the podium is what you stand on, and the lectern is the thing you lean
What
against.
you lean on.
Oh, yeah, I learned that this week.
All right.
I mean, a lot of great work comes out of there with the students, just in general, and it is a pathway to another segue into something other than maybe perhaps being college-bound, and as well as all of the work that there's so much work that comes out of that shop that goes back into our community. They're so gracious about that. It's a little antiquated. I would love to know what the wants would be.
Dr. Ames and I can get that for you.
Okay,
In theory, we get that from them every year for the budget.
great. Hope to see it. I've never actually seen it.
And as we talk about peer educational, I think we should keep in mind also the support services that are needed. What does our special ed department need? And/or other departments that meet the needs of students coming in.
Well, as we move forward, and Brian Kelly will be at a future meeting presenting on the multi-tiered support systems, right, for all students. In that are some of the things that we would need and look for and hope to get in future budgets. But if there are more specific things, Mr. Kelly and I can certainly work on that. It's good.
Are there any other areas of operations that were not in last time around? I'm thinking of, I know you've done a lot of work over the last year where it's not electrifying. What do you call it when you convert all the files to electronic?
So
Electronifying?
Digitize.
Digitizing.
We are
Thank you.
digitizing.
Better
yes.
than electrifying them, I guess. And so things like that are going on. Are there other areas, whether at the district level or in the schools,
Can
even
I
just that we
raise,
hear complaints?
can I raise one that I know came
Yeah.
up in a lot of that leadership transition, and I know you've been working on, but the question is it's done, so therefore it doesn't need to be renewed, or it's still in process? Is this standard operating procedure idea and being able to fill in? And I know there were areas where it seemed pretty clear that there was just the way we've always done it versus something that feels like the way we need to clarify, institutionalize, document, and then train. So are standard operating procedures completed, or are there some areas that we still need to work on that we should memorialize in this to move forward? And maybe you don't have the answer right now, I think we can think about that.
No, it's a good item.
No, so there, certainly that work isn't done, right? And it's part of the reason that we survey and that we look at this and that we meet regularly and have discussions, because sometimes when an issue comes up, we will all look at each other and say, oh, we don't have a procedure for this. Who would have thunk that this particular cascade of consequences would happen that would bring us here, and had we really prepared for it? So there's continually different things that we find, and when we do, we do look to bring them about. But I don't know, unless there's something that we'd be looking for to codify all of them, and in a lot of ways, that's our that's our policy, and then we sort of work on the protocol and the procedures of how we move forward. And we are writing some of those down. And we are also looking to, when some of the people that have held some of the positions they've held for a long time leave, they leave with institutional history, just in their head, that we don't have written down, and working to get those things down on paper so that when they do leave, we'd have something to give the person who would take their place, right? Instead of it just being in somebody's head. And we've found that a couple times when some people have been here a long time who are very good at the job and know how to do it so well because they've done it for so long, leave, and then we don't actually have it written down someplace. But you're right.
It sounds like you're saying that's sort of embedded in the way you do your day-to-day work. And then when you discover something, you're like, oh, we need to dig in deeper, as opposed to it being a strategic item, that it's just built into your work maybe, as opposed to.
I would say yes, but it doesn't mean that if it was the committee's will to have it as part of our strategic planning moving forward, I mean, we're going to do it anyway, but it doesn't mean we couldn't identify it.
Does operations cover the staffing and human resources part?
No, we have a whole separate human resources tree. We
Because
can
that's
choose to
a hot-
consolidate them, but for now, we have a whole separate.
Okay, I looked through your list, I didn't see it, so that's, yeah, that should be a big focus too. That's clearly been a challenge lately.
I do want to just say, I appreciate your focus and leadership on how to deal with redoing the strategic plan. We were on the strategic plan together, and other people in this group were part of it, and I think, it can be an unwieldy process, and I think your idea of like really just getting clear on what we've accomplished and how we need to move forward, and then adding new items in this process, I really appreciate the way you're spreading it throughout the year and letting us dissect it that way. I think I kind of now see where you're going with it, and I really appreciate it.
We'll see, could still be a huge disaster.
Well, it could be.
We're off to a
But
good start.
so far, I feel like, what do they say? How do you eat an elephant? One chunk at a time. So, one bite at a time, right?
Any operational pet peeves elsewhere in the administration?
Oh, wow. Come on up to the mic.
No, I'm very satisfied.
All right, well, we welcome any other operational items we need to add to the strategic plans. Anything else on operations? All right, well, that is it for that for now. And I guess we need a motion to enter executive session.
I'll move to adjourn to executive session without a plan to return for the purpose of discussing, I don't have it in front of me, negotiation, collective bargaining, with the plan not to return.
I'll second.
All right, need a roll call vote?
Could I ask for
Yes.
there was one topic we didn't get to,
Oh,
the
yeah.
board update, and I'd like to. maybe
Please, thank you.
At least have addressed, we did have our serious threat.
Oh, right.
I didn't hear any update on that. Could you give us an update?
Sure. So there was a student who put something on Snapchat. I've learned recently that Snapchat intercepted that, so the message never went to the intended people. Because of the words that it had in it, they didn't let it proceed. The FBI contacted the local police. The local police came, the chief and 3 officers came, and within minutes removed the student from the population. And there was never, through interviews and searches and stuff, there was never any feasibility to be able to carry anything out or intention to do so. Sometimes, we recognize that students' prefrontal cortexes aren't fully developed, and they do things that maybe they wouldn't do when they're a little older. And it was It was a very poor choice. At this point, that student has had their interaction with court. They're a minor, so I believe all of that is sealed. And they've had their consequences issued by the principal, and they have a right to an appeal with me, which I believe they're going to take. This is not one that then goes to the school committee. The appeal stops with me. And right now, the students' we have a plan for the students' educational needs, and at the moment, they're not in school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other items? All right, now you have to make your motion again.
I have to do it again, okay. So I move to, thank you. I move to adjourn to executive session for the purposes of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, without intent to return to regular session.
Second.
All right. That was a Bob Munch second. Roll call vote. Bob Munch.
Aye.
Kim Graham.
Aye.
David Rimler, aye.
Warren Cass, aye.
Veronica Penton, aye.
Michael Dupont, aye.
Kimberly Winter, aye.
And we are adjourned to executive session.